time. Innovation and product development are the key to the success and growth of the coffee industry. Whether it be at the farm level, experimenting with new innovations and processing, or looking at new genetic material. And then it doesn't stop at the cup. There are companies like Reground who take used ground coffee and turn it into new products. We live in a circular industry and we need to help each other out. Now this stage is the perfect platform to look at new innovations. We've seen new cups, water, brewers, and additions to brewers and concepts such as extract chilling. And today, we're going to go through the process of how we build a product. Now, the product, the blend, I've called Brett Rainbow. And the goal is the score sheet. So I'm going to get you to take your notes down now, so then you can listen to the end. So we'll start with what you'll experience in the aroma. Will be orange, mandarin, and caramel. With the flavour, as a hot coffee, you'll see orange, mandarin, and a hint of fresh apricot. Through the warm through cool stage, that fresh apricot will turn to dried apricot. The mandarin will still be there. And a caramel will show through as well. The aftertaste, while hot, will have that fruit, so mandarin and orange. And when it's cool, dried apricot and caramel. The acidity is medium intensity throughout, and it is citric and malic. So again, citrus, orange, mandarin, and stone fruit. The sweetness while hot is driven by those citrus fruits, so mandarin and orange sweetness. And when it cools, you'll have a refined sugar and caramel sweetness. The mouthfeel is juicy while hot, with a medium weight, which will increase to medium plus and be syrupy when it's cool. Awesome. All right. Now, coffee as a product. Now, coffee beans are an incomplete product. When you sell them to someone still needs to finish that. So I'm going to finish with the coffee information. We're going to start with the brewing information because this is where we complete the cycle. With our brewers, now we've come to with some language that we've all come accustomed to when it talks to dose and yield. So things like saying a certain amount of grams and a certain amount of water. But it doesn't tell us everything we need to know. When you develop a product, sometimes you have parameters and restrictions. And for this competition, we have a restriction around a grinder and certain brewers we're allowed to use, which in a real world application, if you were to sell this coffee, you might limit who could buy it if they don't have this equipment. So in preparing for this competition, I used a bunch of different brewers and grinders to make sure I could get the same result. And so I wanted to create slightly different language of how we look at the brewers. Starting with bed depth. I want a bed depth of 2.5 centimeters, which means in any brewer, you could take that. And so, for example, what you have today is 13.3 grams. But if I took it out to the FETCO in the front bar, it would be 120 grams. And with our water content today, we want a 1 to 15 ratio. So with the 13.3 grams of coffee, it's 200 grams of water. And poured in 4 stages. And each stage is really important. So there's a 3 to 1, 3 to 1, 4.5 to 1, and 4.5 to 1. So for today, it's 40 grams, 60 grams, and 60 grams. If your brewer was a 20 gram dose, that would be 60, 60, 90, 90. So that's the communication. Now that pour cycle will control the sweetness that we see in this coffee and the body of the coffee. When looking for the acidity, what I would normally do is be able to change the mineral content of my water. But today I'm unable to do that. So I had to think of a way that I could actually do that. And so what I'm trying to do is what I would call a remix of extract chilling by using a cool water bloom, 55 degrees. Using 55 degree thing, I can replicate what you would get out of extract chilling by keeping the volatile aromas in the cup and not letting them dissolve into the air. Now, grind size is that last variable we need to look at. And I can tell you that I ground on 6.2 on this grinder today. But the way this is calibrated is different to another grinder. So we have to think about what is the common language and what grinder to use. So to know that I've got the correct grind setting, it's when the bloom weight of 3:1 is dry at 30 seconds. This is how I've been able to dial in any grinder with this method, because if the bed is still wet at 30 seconds, it means I'm too fine. If it takes a lot longer to dry, that means I'm too, sorry, the other way. If it's dried quicker than 30 seconds, it means I'm too coarse. The final 3 pours are at 91 degrees today. Now, product development and innovation doesn't happen without collaboration. So there's a lot of people that have sort of helped me get to this stage today. And it started with the coffee choice, or the need for this product. I wanted to look at genetically diverse coffees outside of what we would normally use in Arabica. So for 80% of your blend today, I have an Excelsa from Indonesia, from Finca Las Cascada in East Java. This coffee, very similar to Liberica or Eugenioides, has that really beautiful, rich sweetness that you'll find in the cup. On its own, however, with this particular water, it just didn't have the vibrancy. So I needed to blend something. And I thought, I had so many conversations with people over the last sort of 6 to 8 months. And the one thing that I've been thinking about where we need to probably innovate a little bit more is low caffeine options. So 20% of your coffee today is a tabby from Los Nogales and it's decaf. And Paul from Diggy Doos sourced that one for me. Paulie also roasted both these coffees. So now we've sort of come to this point where we now get to consume this coffee. So for some drinking instructions, when I present it to you, I want you to swirl the cup 4 times and get your nose in there and take 3 deep breaths. Inhale 3 times and get that aroma. And I want you to take the evaluation straight from the cup today, multiple sips over plenty of time. You watch that sweetness really develop. The decaf discussions are obviously something I did a lot in Melbourne, and lots of conversations with Brendan from Decaf Co and Pete Licata from Caffeine Control. And so one of the things to think about and why I think decaf coffee is a really great thing, I've always disliked the terminology death before decaf. It's kind of like we're closing out a whole spectrum of customers that we could be attracting. And given that you guys are now seeing me in the afternoon, I feel like this is an appropriate coffee, because how many you've had today, you're probably really, really wired. So for me, serving low caf coffees that still have this super delicious flavor that we get from what we would normally see, I think is key. And that coffee, that Excelsa from Indonesia, grown at 1,200 meters above sea level, is the lowest altitude coffee I think I've ever presented at Brewers Cup. And I think, especially where we're heading into an environment where coffee growing is becoming more and more difficult, exploring new genetic varieties that are out there is what we should do. So please enjoy this cup, and thank you for my time.
Woo! Put your hands together for Jamie Thomson. Rolling round, everybody. How are you, Jamie?
Good.
You're very calm.
Oh, thank you.
Confident.
Yeah, done this a few times.
How many times have you come here?
We were just trying to work this out backstage. I think it's probably close to every comp outside, even outside of these, probably 40 different competitions.
40. Wow.
Yeah. So first Brewers Cup was 2012. So for me, so I did have a break in between, but not every year. But yeah, it's been a long time.
You're competing every year. So So how do you source your coffee every year?
Well, previously I'd worked at bigger roasteries, so access to different farms, but this one actually started with just an Instagram DM to Zach, who's a roaster at Axel, but also has a business called Atypical Coffee and Placebo Effect. And I just sort of reached out to him, and I know he's such a sort of advocate for the Indonesian coffee community, and this is what he said he could get access to, and we were able to air freight 400 grams of it over, and yeah, just super delicious.
Fantastic. Is there anyone that you especially want to thank who is behind the team? Tell us more about it.
Well, I think Amelia, my ex-wife, who's my coach, always been my coach, and somehow put up with me all these years, drag her along to these things.